Good evening, I'm Janie, and this is my guest, Miss Calla Haint. She's the boo hag that I'm going to tell about in this story, and it all happened in Lee County, Virginia. Now y'all come on in close and mind the fire. Fog's rolling down off the ridge tonight, and the woods are whispering low. I got a story to tell you, one older than the graves on the hill and meaner than winter frost. It's about a woman who burned and what came walking out of them ashes after. They called her Miss Calla Haint, and some folks say she was a witch, but them that knew better, they called her something older, a boo hag. She weren't born evil. The fire made her that way, and now, when the nights turn heavy and that burnt sweet smell drifts down the holler, folks still whisper her name. So lean in close and keep your lights low, and don't you dare strike a match. This one's called The Boo Hag of Hag's Run, the story of Miss Calla Haint, the skin that walks. Now y'all hush a spell and settle yourselves, 'cause what I'm fixin' to tell ain't for jumpy hearts nor city minds. This here's an old story, older than your granddaddy's granddaddy, and it don't rest easy in the telling. See, these mountains, they remember, and they hold things like words, cries, and sins down in their roots, deep where the light don't go. And some nights, when the fog comes rolling thick and the pines start whispering, the mountain breathes it all back out again. What I'm telling you tonight is one of them breathings. It happened up past the ridge they call Hag's Run now. Weren't always called that. Used to be just good hunting land and clear spring water. Folks had cabins scattered round. It was a tight little community where they helped each other through winters. But then there was her, Miss Calla Haint. Pretty name, ain't it? She was a pretty woman too. She was tall with black hair like creek water at midnight and eyes sharp enough to cut through a lie. Lived alone out by the bend where the spring bubbles up cold from under the rocks. She knew her herbs and knew her charms. Folks went to her when the doctor's medicine failed, when a baby wouldn't take its first breath, or a fever held too long. She'd mix a tea, whisper a prayer, maybe tie a ribbon round your wrist, and you'd mend right up. But mountain kindness don't last long once fear sets in. One winter, a sickness swept the valley, started with a cough and ended with graves. It took children first, it always does, and by the second week, folks were desperate. By the third, they were looking for someone to blame. And ain't it funny how fast folks will turn on a woman that lives alone and knows her roots? They said Miss Calla made a deal with something dark, said she traded her shadow for power, and said she could peel the skin off a body and wear it till dawn. Now I don't know if any of that was true, but I know fear makes liars out of good men. One night, the menfolk gathered with torches in hand and faces mean with drink. They marched up that ridge, wind screaming through the trees and shouting for her to come out. And she did. Stood right there in her doorway, calm as still water and eyes glimmering like lantern oil. She didn't beg and she surely didn't cry. Just looked at 'em, every one of 'em, and said, "You think fire'll cleanse you? You don't know what fire sets free." They tied her to the old oak behind her cabin and stacked the wood themselves. And when they lit it, she didn't scream. No, she sang. It was a slow, mournful hum that rolled down the mountain like a hymn for the damned. It weren't no church song, sounded more like the earth itself was answering back. And when the flames died, them men went home, but they never truly left there. 'Cause come morning, where her cabin stood was just black earth, and not a bone, not a tooth, and not a hair in the ashes, just the smell, that burnt sweet scent of pine sap and something that used to be alive. And that night, the dogs started howling. Folks said something was walking down off that ridge, barefoot, barefaced, but walking all the same. From that night on, Hag's Run weren't just a place on the map. It was a warning. They thought they'd burn the witch out of these hills, but you can't burn what the mountains already claimed. Fire just changes a thing, melts it down, and makes it something new. A week after that, folks up the valley started waking in the dark of night, gasping for air. Said it felt like a hand pressing on their chest, a heavy, cold weight that wouldn't let go. When they finally got their breath back, their skin would be clammy and their hearts were racing. And always, that smell lingered like burnt sweet of pine, pitch, and smoke. Now some of y'all don't know that word, but a boo hag is a spirit that clips the skin come sundown, creeps through keyholes and cracks, rides the sleeper's chest, and sucks the breath clean out of them. Then when she's done, she'll pull on somebody else's skin like a Sunday dress and walk round looking near human till daylight. But the skin never fights back, cracks at the seams, curls at the edges, and smells faintly of smoke. That's what Miss Calla Haint became. The fire burned her clean out of her own hide, and now she's forever hunting another. It started with Martha Lou. Poor soul woke her husband screaming, thrashing like she was drowning. When he struck a light, she was pale as chalk, and her eyes had turned red as embers. 5 perfect finger marks were burned into her chest, dark and blistered like somebody had grabbed her straight out of the fire. She sat rocking for months, humming that same tune Miss Calla sang the night she burned. Then came Clem Bowers, loudmouth drunk, full of himself. He was found by the creek, eyes wide open, laughing like a fool with his own skin folded neat beside him like he'd just stepped out of it. That's when folks stopped mocking. They nailed horseshoes above their doors, stuffed garlic in the cracks, and slept with Bibles open. But the boo hag don't mind scripture much. She minds light, she minds talk, and she minds being named. Sometimes you'll hear humming drifting through the fog, low and mournful, like a woman singing to herself. Sometimes you'll catch a glimpse of a tall shape on the ridge, a woman wearing a dress that looks almost bright, except the seams gleam silver in the moonlight, and her hands are bare meat. That's Miss Calla Haint, the boo hag of Hag's Run. She don't walk for revenge alone. The fire burned her clean of her own skin, and now she's forever cold. So she rides the warm ones, rides their breath, rides their dreams till she feels the heat again. And when she leaves, she takes a little piece with her. After Clem Bowers was found skinned to the bone, folks finally took to fearing proper. Doors stayed barred, lamps burned all night, and even the bravest men quit walking the ridge after sunset. But fear don't cure a curse, it feeds it. By the 3rd week of sleepless nights, the valley was wearing itself thin. Milk soured, Bread wouldn't rise, and every morning you could see the same thing on folks' faces, that dragging weariness that comes when something's been riding you. That's when Reverend Albright decided the Lord needed a hand. He said the boo hag was a test, and they'd pass it by faith and fire. So one cold evening, they gathered up 12 souls, men and women alike, carrying salt, iron nails, and a big brass kettle full of holy water that steamed in the night air. I watched them from my porch, and my bones ached just seeing them torches wind up the mountain road. I told them, don't go stirring what the earth's trying to sleep off. But they just nodded polite and kept on. They reached the old burning ground right as the fog come rolling down. The Reverend started praying, words heavy and proper, but the wind swallowed his voice. Then a sound rose from the holler, low and mournful, human like a woman singing under her breath. It was that same song, the one from the night of the fire. The torches flickered, and the air turned thick and hot, though the ground was froze hard. Out of the fog she came, tall, lean, skin patched together in seams that shone wet and red. Her eyes were 2 holes burning, faint like coals, and Lord help me, she was wearing a man's face stitched right down the middle. The Reverend raised his cross and shouted scripture, but she just smiled soft and sad. You think I'm the devil, she said, but it's the fire that taught me to walk. Then she lifted her hand, and the torches went out all at once, every last one. The only light left was the glow from her chest, that same red coal beating where her heart used to be. Folks screamed, scattered into the trees. The Reverend kept praying till his voice broke, but she reached out and touched him on the forehead. He went silent, eyes wide, skin pale as lard, like every bit of breath had been pulled clean through his bones. By dawn, they all stumbled back to town, all but one. That brass kettle was found half melted in the ashes. The preacher's Bible lay open to the book of Job, pages black at the edges. After that night, nobody ever tried to fight her again. The mountain don't take kindly to a second burning. Cabins near Hag's Run were left to rot, paths swallowed by weeds, and the ridge went quiet, the kind of quiet that hums in your teeth. Mama used to say the hag weren't hunting anymore, just gathering, collecting what the fire scattered. A face here, a voice there, stitching herself whole again with every fog that rolled down the valley. Now I ain't no preacher, and I ain't one to go sticking my nose where the mountain's got business of its own. But when you live long enough in these parts, you start learning what's truth and what's just talk. And what I'm about to tell you, this here's the truth. I'd been near on 40 years since that night the preacher went missing. I was an old woman myself by then, bones creaking louder than the floorboards, but I still kept my garden small and my mind sharp. Most folks had forgotten Miss Calla Haint by then. Young people don't remember what they ain't been scared by. But the mountain remembers. It was late summer, one of them nights when the air's thick enough to drink. Sky was heavy, clouds low, and the woods dead quiet. I was sitting out on my porch, rocking slow, watching the lightning flicker off in the distance. Then that smell hit me, sap and smoke, sweet and burning all at once. My hound lifted his head, whined and sluck under the porch, tail tucked tight, and I knew right then she was near. The fog started spilling down the ridge, rolling soft and white, creeping over the fence line like it was looking for something. And out of that mist came a hum, low and sorrowful, the kind of sound that crawls under your skin. I'd heard that tune before, when I was a girl hiding under Mama's quilt while the men went up to burn her. So I stood real still and said, "Miss Calla, you come to me now after all these years?" And out she stepped. Lord have mercy, I'll never forget the sight. She was tall, taller than I remembered, and thin but strong, like a sapling that's been through 100 storms and never snapped. Her hair hung dark and tangled, dripping down her back like rainwater. Her skin? Well, she didn't have much left that was her own. It gleamed in the moonlight, stitched and pieced together, patches of pale and dark, young and old. Every seam had looked like it had been mended with fire. Her eyes weren't black anymore. They were red, soft pulsing red like coals breathing under ash. And when she smiled, I felt my knees go weak. Not from fear, mind you, but from sorrow. She looked tired, worn thin by time and hate. "You kept my name," she said, voice rasping like wind through the dead leaves. "You spoke it when others wouldn't. You kept me remembered." I swallowed hard and told her, "I never meant to harm Miss Calla. I just told the truth." She nodded slow. "Truth's a kind of magic all its own." Then she stepped up to my fence, laid her hand on the rail. Where her palm touched, the wood hissed, blackened, and a handprint burned itself deep into the grain. And she said, "Don't let 'em forget me again. You tell it right, tell it honest. Tell it 'fore they light another match they can't unstrike." The fog thickened then, rolling round her like smoke, and when it lifted, she was gone. The air cleared, and the night went still, but that handprint's still there. Been 40 years since that evening, and the rains washed everything else off that fence except that mark. So when young folks come by laughing about ghost stories, I just point to it and say, "That's where she stood, that's where she spoke, and that's why I don't burn nothing bigger than a candle. 'Cause fire don't cleanse, child, it remember." And the boo hag of Hags Run, Miss Calla Haint, she's still out there in the fog somewhere, humming her song, searching for a bit of warmth to keep her till dawn. So if you ever wake in the dark and can't move and can't breathe, and you smell that burnt sweet scent hanging thick in the air, you remember what I told you. Don't scream, don't fight, and for the love of mercy, don't strike no light. Just whisper soft, "Rest easy, Miss Calla, I ain't forgot." Then close your eyes and pray the sun comes up quick. Well now, you know it too. You know about the fire, the song, and the woman who walked out of both. Maybe you'll say it's just talk, mountain superstition, but them who live close to the land know the truth. Stories grow from something, same as trees grow from roots. And here in these old hills, the roots run deep. So if you find yourself driving through Lee County come a foggy night, and the road bends up towards Hags Run, keep your windows rolled up, your eyes on the road, and your heart still. Don't whistle, don't call her name. And if that smell of sap and smoke finds its way through your vents, whisper soft, Rest easy, Miss Calla, I ain't forgot. Then let the mountain keep its peace, 'cause some stories ain't meant to end. Child, they're meant to remember.